This video is a full compilation of my three-part series telling the complete story of Nikola Tesla's groundbreaking work on wireless and free energy transmission, and how those in power, fearing its impact, moved to shut it down at all costs. Before further ado, let's dive in. Legend has it, Nikola Tesla was born at the stroke of midnight during a fierce lightning storm. Born in the Austrian Empire on July 10th, 1856, Tesla was the fourth of five children. But Tesla was unlike other children. He was tall, gaunt, and full of ambition, already fascinated by the mysterious force of electricity. Tesla had the opportunity to attend the prestigious Imperial Royal Technical College in Graz. It was here that he first encountered the DC motor. He immediately found it flawed and inefficient, as it required a commutator to transform naturally alternating current, AC, into direct current, DC, before it could be harnessed. After 3 years in Graz, he moved to Paris to work for the Continental Edison Company. It was there that he developed his first major invention, the AC motor, or alternator. Tesla had an extraordinary photographic memory. He could visualize complex machines entirely in his mind and even modify individual components as if they were physically in his hands. Eventually, Tesla moved to the United States, where he tried, unsuccessfully, to pitch his AC motor to Thomas Edison. But soon after, he partnered with George Westinghouse and created the first practical alternator. Tesla received patents for his invention, but controversy arose when other inventors claimed to have created the alternator before him, leading to years of legal battles. Around the time the War of the Currents began, DC versus AC, and here, in my opinion, Tesla made his first crucial mistake. Unlike Edison or Westinghouse, Tesla was not a businessman. He was a pure inventor, and money did not interest him. As a humanitarian, Tesla wanted the world to benefit from his invention, so instead of keeping the royalties on his AC patents, he relinquished them entirely to Westinghouse. While there were strategic reasons for doing so, this decision ultimately cost Tesla an estimated $300 million in today's money, something that would come back to haunt him later. Over the following years, Tesla developed countless inventions and became a showman, dazzling crowds from New York to London to Paris with public demonstrations. But these weren't your typical lectures. Tesla showcased his AC motors, a variety of electric bulbs, and most famously, the Tesla coil. In May 1891, Tesla agreed to present his work on high frequency phenomena during a 3-day synopsis of the American Institute of Electrical Engineers, or AIEE. This became a historic moment. Tesla didn't just offer a spectacle of electrical wonders, he outlined what he called fundamental and far reaching principles.
We are whirling through endless space with an inconceivable speed. All around us, everything is spinning, everything is moving, everywhere is energy. There must be some way of availing ourselves of this energy directly. Then, with the light obtained through the medium, with the power derived from it, with every form of energy obtained without effort, from stores forever inexhaustible, humanity will advance with giant strides.
With this powerful declaration, Tesla made his intentions clear: to harness what he called free energy and to distribute it wirelessly across the planet for the advancement of society. He had already made his first breakthrough, the Tesla coil. Exhausted tubes held in the hands of Mr. Tesla appeared like a luminous sword in the hand of an archangel representing justice, said one reporter. How did he do it? It's actually simpler than it seems. Tesla's coil created extremely high voltages and frequencies with very low currents. Think of electricity like water in a river. The amount of water is the current, the amps, and the incline of the river is the voltage, measured in volts. Tesla's machine was like a steep waterfall with just a small stream flowing through it. High voltage, low current. These high frequencies allowed energy to travel through the air. To transmit wireless energy, you must create an electric field between two metal plates. This requires two things: high voltage and high frequency. It all starts with a high frequency alternator, essentially an AC generator. This power is stored in a capacitor and released only when a certain voltage is reached, triggered by a spark gap. This produces a powerful oscillating circuit that increases the frequency. The electricity then flows to a primary coil made up of just a few turns of wire. As you may know, electric current in a coil generates a magnetic field. This field induces a current in a nearby secondary coil, a process called mutual inductance. The secondary coil has many more turns of wire, which further increases the voltage. At the top is a terminal or top load. Tesla sometimes used two metal plates, or in other designs, one plate with the other terminal grounded. He called the first a Type 2 transformer and the second a Type 1. Tesla explained,
The ideal way of lighting a hall or room would, however, be to produce such a condition in it that an illuminating device could be moved and put anywhere, and that it is lighted no matter where it is put, and without being electrically connected to anything. I have been able to produce such a condition by creating in the room a powerful, rapidly alternating electrostatic field. For this purpose, I suspend a sheet of metal a distance from the ceiling on insulating cords and connect it to one terminal of the induction coil, the other terminal being preferably connected to the ground. Or else I suspend two sheets, each connected with one terminal of the coil and their size carefully determined. An exhausted tube may then be carried in the hand anywhere between the sheets or even a certain distance beyond them. It remains always luminous.
in Tesla's mind, all his discoveries were converging into one grand project. In 1893, he said,
I firmly believe that it is practicable to disturb by means of powerful machines the electrostatic conditions of the earth, and thus transmit intelligible signals and perhaps power. First, we must know what capacity the earth is and what charge it contains.
he also speculated that the Earth was probably a charged body insulated in space and thus had a low capacity. At the time, this was a mere speculation, but today, Tesla has once again been proven right. The Earth is indeed a charged body insulated in space, in part due to the solar wind striking the atmosphere. We now know that the ionosphere, a conducting layer about 50 kilometers above Earth's surface, is electrically active. This conducting layer makes the Earth negatively charged, and the difference in charge between the Earth and the ionosphere is significant, approximately 40,000 volts. This creates a resonant cavity known today as the Schumann cavity. It was officially discovered in 1952, but Tesla had already grasped its principles 6 decades earlier.
Surrounding the Earth, there's a cavity that resonates at about 8 cycles per second. And this cavity exists between the Earth we're standing on now and the bottom of the ionosphere, about a 60-kilometer gap. in this three-dimensional resonant cavity. In that cavity, you can transmit power, electromagnetic energy, at 8 hertz with almost no attenuation. The Schumann cavity is pumped or fueled at this time with megawatts of power from the lightning strokes that are occurring many times a second on a worldwide basis.
He realized that the air at higher altitudes was thinner and therefore more conductive, and indeed, everything described here still applies to how we transmit radio waves today. This became his first theory for wireless energy transmission, but Tesla also envisioned a second method, through the Earth itself.
If ever we can ascertain at what period the Earth's charge, when disturbed, oscillates with respect to an oppositely electrified system or known circuit, we shall know a fact, possibly of the greatest importance to the welfare of the human race. I propose to seek for the period by means of an electrical oscillator or a source of alternating electric currents.
Since Earth is a charged and conductive body, Tesla believed it was possible to transmit electricity through it by alternating charging and discharging it, creating a flow of currents. But to do this over large distances, he needed resonance. Resonance is what reduces electrical resistance. In other words, the more resonant a system is, the more efficient it becomes. To transmit electricity through the Earth, Tesla needed to determine the planet's natural frequency. Though he had already lit bulbs at a distance of 26 miles, Tesla wanted to scale up. So, on May 18, 1899, he headed west to Colorado Springs. He had 3 main objectives. 1. To develop a transmitter of great power. 2. To perfect the individualization and isolation of transmitted energy. And 3. To study the laws of current propagation through the Earth and the atmosphere. On his newly acquired land, Tesla built a barn-like laboratory, 60 by 70 feet, with a retractable roof and a tall metal mast topped up with a 30-inch copper-covered wooden sphere. This elevated terminal acted as an isolated conductor, accumulating electrical charge. The height of the mast could be adjusted to change the coil's frequency. Inside the barn, Tesla constructed the largest Tesla coil ever built, 15 meters or 50 feet in diameter. He called it the magnifying transmitter. Let's first talk about the machine's characteristics. This was, in essence, a Tesla coil on steroids. It could generate upwards of 12 million volts and reportedly produce tens, even hundreds of thousands of horsepower. It operated at frequencies ranging from 50 to 150 kilohertz. This behemoth operated by passing alternating currents through a 50,000 volt Westinghouse transformer, which charged 14 oil filled capacitors. Once a specific voltage was reached, the energy was released through a spark gap, creating a high frequency oscillating current. This current was then transferred to the primary winding in a single turn of heavy cable buried at the base, Tesla referred to as the fence. Surrounding this setup was the secondary coil, a massive 50-foot diameter, 9-foot tall spiral of 50 turns of wire. All this alone would constitute a standard Tesla coil, but this was no ordinary setup. Tesla added an extra coil at the center of the structure, making this configuration something truly unique. According to Wikipedia, the secondary winding of the transmitter is visible at left, as the 60-foot diameter circular fence surrounding all the other coils. A 50 kilohertz radio frequency current in this coil creates a magnetic field that induces a high voltage in all the other coils by electromagnetic induction. The 20-foot tall output resonance coil of the transmitter at the right. Its parasitic capacitance causes it to act like a resonant circuit. It is tuned to the frequency of the secondary, generating millions of volts, which creates a large discharge of streamer arcs at its top. The corona discharges visible at the top of all the other coils show they are also generating high voltages. The principle of the extra coil wasn't fully understood until the 1970s, so don't feel bad if it's still confusing. From what I've gathered, the extra coil provides a resonance boost, and because it's more independent from the primary and secondary coils, it can oscillate more freely. Tesla himself wrote, "Extra coils enable the attainment of practically any EMF voltage, the limit being so far remote that I would not hesitate to produce sparks of thousands of feet in this manner." Tesla also needed a proper ground connection. At first he connected the secondary coil to a metal water pipe, but this didn't work well, so he placed it with a 12-foot deep copper plate buried in the earth. In his Colorado Spring notes, Tesla talks about how he had to constantly water the surrounding ground to reduce resistance and improve the signal's ability to enter the earth. He observed that the best ground connections were located above aquifers, a detail that becomes very important. And if you stick around for future videos, you'll see exactly why. If you made it this far, thank you very much. You might as well subscribe because there's a lot more to Tesla's story. And yes, I am even going to tie him to the Great Pyramid. Sounds crazy now, but trust me, stick around and it will all make sense. Now, back to Tesla. He conducted his first experiments at Colorado Springs on June 15, 1899. Strange phenomena began almost immediately. At night, sparks appeared beneath the feet as he walked on the grounds. Butterflies flew in spirals. Horses became terrified, seemingly feeling the electricity in their hooves. Light bulbs 60 feet away shattered spontaneously. Tesla was pushing the absolute limits of human understanding. I would argue that at that time, he was deep in the wilderness of discovery while everyone else was still stuck on the trail a mile behind. Then came Tesla's most important discovery.
It was on the 3rd of July, the date I shall never forget, when I obtained the first decisive experimental evidence of a truth of overwhelming importance for the advancement of humanity. A dense mass of strongly charged clouds gathered in the west, and towards the evening a violent storm broke loose, which after spending its fury in the mountains was driven away with great velocity over the plains. Heavy and long persisting arcs formed almost in regular time intervals. My observations were now greatly facilitated and rendered more accurate by the experiences already gained. I was able to handle my instruments quickly, and I was prepared. The recording apparatus being properly adjusted, its indications became fainter and fainter with the increasing distance of the storm until they ceased altogether. I was watching in eager expectation. Surely enough, in a little while the indications again began, grew stronger and stronger, and after passing through a maximum, gradually decreased and ceased once more. Many times, in regularly recurring intervals, the same actions were repeated, until the storm, which, as evident from simple computations, was moving with nearly constant speed, had retreated to a distance of about 300 kilometers. Nor did these strange actions stop then, but continued to manifest themselves with undiminished force. Subsequently, similar observations were also made by my assistant, Mr. Fritz Lowenstein, and shortly afterwards several admirable opportunities presented themselves, which brought out still more forcibly and unmistakably the true nature of the wonderful phenomenon. no doubt whatever remained. I was observing stationary waves.
With this, Tesla knew it was possible to transmit energy through the Earth without concern for distance. Stationary waves form when energy waves of the same frequency collide. What's important here is that Tesla detected these waves at a distance long after the storm's direct energy had passed. This indicated that resonance had been achieved. That meant Tesla could potentially replicate the effect and use it to transmit energy worldwide. A stationary wave contains nodes and antinodes, essentially the peaks, troughs, and stationary points of the wave. To create them, Tesla needed to first determine the Earth's natural resonance frequency, which he believed to be around 12 Hz, and was again found to be correct. With the magnifying transmitter, he could inject high voltage energy into the Earth, generating currents. And here's where it gets interesting. As with any current flowing through a conductor surrounded by an insulating medium, an electrical disturbance is also created in the adjacent material space. In Tesla's system, this was a surface wave, a wave traveling along the interface between grounds and air. In essence, the stationary waves he had detected during the lightning storm.
By impressing upon it current waves of certain lengths, definitely related to its diameter, the globe is thrown into resonant vibration like a wire, forming stationary waves.
This about sums up Tesla's concept for transmitting energy through the Earth itself. Of course, we could go on for hours explaining every detail, but I think you've got the gist of it. But Tesla wasn't done yet. He had one more trick up his sleeve: transmission through the Schumann cavity. I've read and listened to many explanations of this, but nearly all of them overlook a crucial detail. For the purpose of energy transmission, the usable part of the cavity only begins about 5 miles in altitude, where the air becomes thin enough to be more easily ionized and then transmitted. As you may know, air is typically an insulator. So, how does lightning happen? Well, if you answered plasma, you're absolutely correct. Tesla realized that if the potential, which means voltage, was high enough, the air would ionize and become conducting. Convenient, isn't it? And what's more, he discovered that this ionization effect tends to shoot straight up, making it perfect for vertical transmission. This is how Tesla managed to create a 132-foot artificial lightning bolt, which was heard 15 miles away in Colorado Springs.
But in experimenting with these high potential discharges, which I was always producing, I discovered a wonderful thing. I found, namely, that the air, which had been behaving like an insulator, suddenly became like a conductor. That is, when subjected to these great electrical stresses, it broke down, and I obtained discharges which were not accountable for by the theory that the air was an insulator. When I calculated the effects, I concluded that this must be due to the potential gradient at a distance from the electrified body. Subsequently, I came to the conviction that it would ultimately be possible without any elevated antenna, with very small elevation, to break down the upper stratum of the air and transmit the current by conduction. A ray of great ionizing power is used to give to the atmosphere great powers of conduction. A high-tension current of 10 million to 12 million volts is then passed along the ray to the upper strata of the air, which strata can be broken down very readily and will conduct electricity very well.
So, what does this mean? Tesla would send up a high voltage pulse, tuned to a multiple of the Schumann resonance, approximately 7.8 Hz, in which he had calculated to be around 8 Hz. Again, correct. This pulse would ionize the air up to the 5-mile mark, creating a conductive path. Once there, the wave would travel around the Earth with minimal resistance. As the wave returned to its origin, Tesla would send another pulse, just like hitting a tetherball at the perfect moment to increase its energy. This process would build up a lasting electromagnetic field in the atmosphere, one that could be tapped into and brought back down to Earth using the same equipment that created it. Tesla had done it. He had discovered not one, but two methods of transmitting energy wirelessly across the globe. He had built the apparatus to receive it, and he had developed his famous magnifying transmitter. And with this, he returned to New York to begin the building of his ultimate laboratory, the Wardenclyffe Tower. And who better to fund the greatest project in human history than the most powerful man of the 20th century?
What could possibly go wrong if J.P. Morgan funded my plan? Whatever could go wrong? I guess you will have to subscribe to find out.
Nikola Tesla returned to New York in triumph. Fresh from his groundbreaking experiments in Colorado Springs, he believed he had done the impossible. Cracked the code to wireless energy transmission, a system that could send limitless amounts of power through the Earth without a single wire. His dream to power the entire world freely. But even the most brilliant ideas need backing, and that's where J.P. Morgan comes in. At first, the partnership looked like a victory. Tesla had the vision, Morgan had the money. What could go wrong? Spoiler alert, everything. This wasn't just the start of a project, it was a spark that would ignite Tesla's greatest downfall. But to understand how it all unraveled, we need to rewind just a bit. On January 11th, 1900, Tesla took the train back to his old home, the Big Apple.
I have just returned from Colorado, where I have been carrying on some experiments since a few months past. The success has been even greater than I anticipated, and among other things, I have absolutely demonstrated the practicability of the establishment of telegraphic communication to any point on the globe by the help of the machinery I have perfected.
He was ready to revolutionize the world just as he had done 2 decades earlier with the invention of the AC motor. A couple of months later, he wrote one of his most famous articles, The Problem of Increasing Human Energy, published in Century magazine. It was so compelling, it caught the attention of the arguably the most powerful man alive at that time, J.P. Morgan. Morgan invited Tesla to his home to discuss possible agreements, but Morgan wasn't interested in wireless energy transmission. Far from it. What he wanted was transatlantic communication in a matter of minutes. Useful in itself, of course, but as a businessman, he saw it as a way to get even richer. If he could receive information from the London Stock Exchange before anyone else in America, he could essentially beat the system. Morgan asked Tesla how much money he would need to establish wireless communication across the Atlantic. Tesla said that with 100,000 he could do it, and with 250,000 he could reach the Pacific. So Morgan gives him 150,000 just to be sure, and they agree on the construction of a 90-foot tower. But Morgan adds a catch. He attaches the patents of the apparatus to the deal, including some of Tesla's lighting patents. Tesla was caught in a bind. He thought this was just a business agreement, but now, if he signs, Morgan would own 50% of Tesla's patents on wireless communication and energy transmission. Tesla would never again be free to work independently. He'd always need Morgan's authorization. Still, Morgan was the perfect funder, the richest man in America. Tesla believed he'd have unlimited funds at his disposal. So he believed. So, in March 1901, he signs the deal. He even gives Morgan 51% ownership of the patents. After securing the funds, Tesla sets off to find the perfect piece of land. It had to be close enough to New York to easily bring in materials, private enough to keep competitors away, and this might be more speculative, but I believe Tesla also wanted to build over an aquifer. Eventually, Tesla buys 200 acres of land from James S. Warden, a banker and attorney who owns 1,800 acres in Suffolk County, Long Island. Tesla had big plans. He intended to buy up all Warden's land to create a radio city to house his employees. So now, Tesla had the land and the financier. What he needed next was the architect. Enter Stanford White, a titan of the American Renaissance, designer of the Washington Square Arch, Madison Square Garden, and much, much more. A friend of Tesla's, White agreed to design Tesla's laboratory and tower for very little money. In the summer of 1901, construction began on Tesla's laboratory and station. It was a 94 by 94 foot building divided into 4 sections: boiler room, the engine and dynamo room, the machine shop, and the laboratory. At the front, 2 sliding doors led to the machine shop, which housed many machines for working with wood, glass, and metal. Just to name a few, 1 electric motor powered it all. There was a milling machine, 11 workbenches, several lathes, oil tanks, and much more. A stairway led to a balcony overlooking the entire operation. On the opposite side was the laboratory, filled with all sorts of electrical equipment: 6 motors, rheostats, devices used to change resistance in a circuit, 4 transformers. No, not those transformers. These transformers. Yes, I know, bad joke. Moving on. Tesla also stored past inventions here, including his teleautomaton, a remote-controlled boat, and his Egg of Columbus. On the east side was the boiler room, equipped with 2 Babcock and Wilcox boilers, a special type of boiler. Fuel was brought directly by a spur from the Long Island Railroad. Coal cars could be driven right in. Stanford White had thought of everything. Opposite that, on the west side, was the engine and dynamo room, where the project's power was created, and housed multiple Westinghouse AC generators, including a 200 kilowatt alternator, a 100 horsepower generator, and much more. This power was to be passed through underground wires to the tower. Some of these machines were so expensive Tesla could only lease them out. Then, just 30 days after the agreement, Morgan leaves for Europe. Might not seem like a big deal, but on May 11th, 1901, the stock market crashes, and it's Morgan's fault. To simplify a very complex situation, financier Ned Harriman had launched a sort of business coup, buying out the stock of a company Morgan had just acquired. In response, Morgan told his brokers to buy back stock at any price, sparking a massive panic. The New York Times wrote, "The greatest general panic that Wall Street has ever known came upon the stock market yesterday, with the result that before it was checked, many fortunes had been swept away." For Tesla, this meant Costs skyrocketed, and credit became impossible to obtain. While Morgan was away, Tesla discovered that Marconi had been pirating his patents. Marconi was using Tesla's design and claiming them as his own to send wireless signals. Tesla was furious, and rightfully so. Marconi barely understood wireless theory. To give just one example, Tesla had already figured out how to create an infinite amount of radio channels. Marconi couldn't even make two. Yet he was being celebrated as the father of wireless. Tesla realized there was no point in starting small. He had to go big. He changed the plans and began the construction of a new tower, 183 feet high. Construction officially began in February 1902. First, the foundation was laid, an octagonal concrete base 97 feet wide with 838.5-foot sides. By September, large wooden beams joined together by nearly 50,000 bolts were assembled. The structure was beautifully designed and doubly reinforced, meaning any beam could be removed for replacement without compromising stability. The 8 sides of the tower gradually sloped inward to support the mushroom-shaped cupola at the top. At a height of 153 feet, 48 angled trusses circled the perimeter, forming the dome. But that was only half the story. The other half was hidden undergrounds. At a court hearing, Tesla said,
In this system that I have invented, it is necessary for the machine to get a grip of the earth. Otherwise, it cannot shake the earth. It has to have a grip on the earth so that the whole of this globe can quiver. And to do that, it is necessary to carry out a very expensive construction. I had in fact invented special machines. There was a big shaft, about 10 by 12 feet, goes down about 120 feet, and this was first covered with timber and the inside with steel, and in the center of this there was a winding stairs going down, and in the center of the stairs there was a big shaft again through which the current was to pass. And then the real expensive work was to connect that central part with the earth. And there I had special machines rigged up which would push the iron pipe one length after another. And I pushed these iron pipes, I think 16 of them, 300 feet. And then the current through these pipes takes hold of the earth.
a local newspaper, the Port Jefferson Echo, reported, the staircase leading down into the subterranean chamber is partially completed, and next week a force of workmen will begin the driving of a series of 4 small tunnels, each 100 feet long, traversely across the bottom of the well. As these tunnels will be below the water level, some skillful engineering will be required to carry the work through. What were these tunnels for? Both the 100-foot traverse ones and the ones Tesla had described in his court hearing. We can only speculate. Some believe Tesla may have been using them for acoustic resonance to extract energy from the Earth itself.
He was right above the aquifer.
There may have been acoustic properties associated with these tunnels. This may relate to the conducting properties of the Earth being associated with free electrons that can actually be modeled as a gas. And so there may be something to the speculation that there is an acoustic property or aspect to the operation of the Wardenclyffe Tower.
Still don't know the full design or capability of the tower, but Tesla claimed it could do the following. As I read this list, see how many of these technologies actually exist today. Number 1. Establishment of a multi-channel global broadcasting system, news, music, etc. This we have. 2. Interconnection of the world's telephone, telegraph exchanges, and stock ticketers. Again, we have this. 3. Transmission of written and printed matter and data. Again, this is true today. 4. Worldwide reproduction of photographic images. This again we have. 5. Universal marine navigation and location systems. Check that one out. 6. Secure wireless communication services. Yes. 7. Remote control and propulsion of UAVs. Those would be known as today as drones. 8. Wireless transmission of electrical energy for propulsion and industry. This we do not have.
You sure about that? You sure about that? That's why?
9. Geophysical exploration. Okay. 10. Weather control, artificial rain, climate control. Now this is a little more speculative, but artificial rain is acknowledged, and weather control has been banned in war since the 1980s, so look into that. 11. Macroscopic charged particle beam projection. Another controversial one, but multiple whistleblowers have come out of DARPA and the Antarctic base claiming exactly this. 12. Electrical projections of explosive energy. This one also is speculative. 13. Electrotherapeutics. This we have. 14. Interplanetary communication supporting high-speed internet. We have started this, I'd say. And 15. Logic gates, digital computing, software-defined radio, global networks, and AI. Yes, Tesla had predicted artificial intelligence a century before. Tesla had visions all of these decades ahead of his time. The only thing we still don't have today is wireless energy transmission. Why not, you may ask? Well, consider this quote from Henry Kissinger. Who controls the food supply controls the people. Who controls the energy can control the whole continents. Who controls money can control the world. Energy is everything. By the way, if you've stuck around this far, thank you. These videos on Tesla are part of a larger series to explore the mysteries the mainstream often tries to hide from us. If you enjoyed this video, you might as well subscribe. We'll be diving deeper into the realm of mystery, controversy, and hidden truths very soon. So, how did Tesla plan to achieve all of this? Well, he used what he called a Type 2 transmitter. By the way, to better understand the apparatus, go watch my previous video. This transformer used both the Earth and atmosphere to transmit energy. But Tesla wasn't satisfied with the atmospheric method for several complex reasons. So in this video, we'll focus mostly on ground-based transmission.
Tesla was using the Earth's natural resonant frequency, and he wanted to grip into that and send a pulse into that. And so once he sent a charge, the charge would come back up and it'd be stored at the top of the cupola. And he would transform the energy and magnify it by changing its frequency, and then jumping it by using the Earth as a resonant frequency to the receiving tower. And then he would want to have similar towers at nodal points around the planet. He had calculated where to put these towers. They were not randomly designed, so you could jump energy.
So what does it all mean? Well, let's simplify. Tesla had figured out the resonant frequency of the Earth. This means that he could send electricity through the ground with minimal energy loss. Using his magnifying transmitter, the tower, he produced high voltage with low current at a specific frequency, a harmonic of the Earth's natural frequency, if you will. That wave would travel through the Earth and bounce back. Tesla would gather it again, amplify it, and repeat the cycle. This would generate a continuous flow of energy within the planets. And just like any current flowing through a conductor, it would create stationary waves at the surface. From my understanding, it's those stationary waves that could be harnessed to produce and obtain electrical energy anywhere on the Earth.
He certainly could have sent signals across the Atlantic, but no trouble with a station of that magnitude. But he was still pursuing wireless power transmission. The tower would light up at night, shooting sparks, making noises. Such experiments, they alarmed the whole area.
Now, you must realize that Morgan still thought that Tesla was only pursuing wireless communication. All of this sounds great, but Tesla needed more money. He still wanted to complete the tower's dome and continue digging around underground. He was buried in debts not only because he doubled the size of the tower, but also because of the stock market crash caused by Morgan's feud. But Morgan saw it differently. Tesla had breached the contract by changing the design. So to Morgan, the deal was over. What could Tesla do? Morgan controlled the patents. Tesla couldn't oppose him. So he tried to appease him, telling him that just 100,000 more, and he could connect the whole world wirelessly. But Morgan didn't care. He wanted profits, not potential. Tesla was so close to his goal that he started spending his own money. He scrapped together a few $1,000s here and there, but it still wasn't enough. Still, Morgan wouldn't reply. Tesla had no choice. He had to reveal his true plan. He wanted to transmit energy wirelessly to the entire planet.
Dear Mr. Morgan, I have solved the greatest industrial problem which has confronted humanity since ages. My success is absolutely certain. I can deliver power in any desired amounts to any distance without wire. This will be of incalculable consequences. Will you aid me in this great work?
Nikola Tesla had perfected a way to transmit energy wirelessly through the Earth and the atmosphere. The world was on the brink of a revolutionary shift, limitless, free energy for all. But one man saw threats, not an opportunity. J.P. Morgan, the titan of Wall Street, realized Tesla's vision would dismantle the foundations of his empire. And so, he made sure it never happens. This is the untold story of how the most powerful financier in history crushed the dreams of wireless energy and silenced Tesla's greatest invention. Here's a short recap. Tesla had made an agreement with Morgan to build Wardenclyffe to communicate wirelessly across the Atlantic. Tesla had gotten $150,000. Morgan got 51% of Tesla's patents. The problem started when Tesla decided to break the deal with Morgan and began building a tower double the height, 186 feet. He did this because he realized that his opponents, specifically Marconi, were stealing his inventions. There was no reason to start small with only wireless communication. He had to go all the way. He wanted to transmit wireless energy. But soon after, Tesla found himself in a mountain of debts. He went to Morgan to try to get a few more $1,000s, but Morgan refused. By September of 1902, the tower had reached 180 feet, but Tesla had exhausted all the funds. The dome still needed to be installed. He had to lay off most of his workers. But Tesla started using his own money. He sold some of the land he owned and gathered up all the money he received from the royalties in Europe. He was able to put the cupola on top. All he needed now was 100,000 more, and the project would be complete and operational. So he decided to write to Morgan once more after nearly a year. But this time, he told him his true objective: to transmit power across the world without the need of any kind of wires.
The only way to fully protect myself was to develop apparatus of such power as to enable me to control effectively the vibrations throughout the globe. By straining every part of my machinery to the utmost, I shall be able to reach a rate of energy delivery of 10 millions of horsepower. This production would be equal to more than twice that of the entire Falls of Niagara. Thus, the waves generated by my transmitter will be the greatest spontaneous manifestation of energy on Earth, and the strongest effect produced at a point diametrically opposite the transmitter.
This statement was in fact counterintuitive. Morgan now clearly felt that Tesla had breached the contract. All he wanted was transatlantic communication, and here Tesla was trying to transmit free energy, something that would clearly have assured Morgan's downfall. Tesla then sent another letter addressing more the wireless communication aspects, but this didn't help much. When it was clear that Morgan didn't want to lend another penny to Tesla, Nikola switched to a new plan. He wanted to get new investors by selling bonds, but again, Morgan blocked his idea. He wanted to retain his 51% ownership of the company and his 1/3 of the securities. Moreover, he now wanted to be reimbursed for his initial investment of 150,000. Everything was going downhill. Tesla was so close. All he needed was 100,000 more, and the whole world would be transformed for the better. Tesla believed that all wars would end, that starvation would be a thing of the past, and that all those children who were working on farms could finally go to school and get educated. This would create a chain reaction of new inventors, and next thing you know, we would be an interplanetary species and traveling the universe. But all this was stopped by one man. On June 15th, 1903, exactly at midnight, Tesla tested out his transmitter. New Yorkers attended that night's attraction, a demonstration of the technological future of the whole world. A dazzling, sparkling flame of electric plasma 100 miles in diameter connected the spherical dome of the machine with the sky. The electricity was seen from as far as Connecticut, but it was all in vain. Creditors began showing up demanding money. Westinghouse Corporation, the company he had given his AC motor to without any royalties and which had earned millions from him alone, showed up with a court order granting them permission to cart away the heavier equipment. They took away his 200 kilowatt generator, the power source of his whole operation. Without it, the tower was just a pile of wood, nicely stacked up. Tesla started sending messages to Morgan.
Dear Mr. Morgan, I have put all the money I could scrape together in this plant. With $50,000 more, it is completed.
Dear sir, in reply to your note, I regret to say that I should not be willing to advance any further amounts of money, as I have already told you. Of course, I wish you every success in your undertaking. Yours very truly, J. Pierpont Morgan.
Dear Mr. Morgan, you wish me success. It is in your hands. How can you wish it? It is just 14 months that the construction work on my plant was stopped. 3 months more with a good force of men, and I would be paying $10,000 a day. Now, I need only a little more to save a great property. Dear Mr. Morgan, are you going to leave me in a hole? I have made 1,000 powerful enemies on your account. There is only one way to go, Mr. Morgan. Give me the money to finish a great work, or else make me a present and let me work out. Dear Mr. Morgan, help me to complete this work, or else remove the obstacles in my path.
The letters were of little use. But Tesla wasn't a quitter. He tried a final, last-ditch effort. He went around trying to find 10 people to give him $10,000 each. The odds were against him. But that's when he struck gold. On October 12, 1903, he met a man by the name of Thomas Fortune Ryan, an investor and stockbroker who gained control of nearly $1.4 billion by 1905. That's over $50 billion today, or half of the entire public debts of the United States back then. He instantly agreed to pay Tesla $25,000. This was great, but Tesla still needed to confer with Morgan, and so he asked him, "Would you consider underwriting the entire $100,000? Ryan said, "Possibly," and Tesla soon organized a meeting between Thomas and Morgan.
Mr. Ryan is a great admirer and a loyal friend of yours, and for this reason, as well as on account of his ability, I am very anxious to enlist his cooperation. I have told him that $100,000 would be sufficient to reach the first commercial results which will pave the way to other greater successes. Knowing your generous spirit, I have told Mr. Ryan that any terms you may decide upon will be satisfactory to me.
Tesla had high hopes. Finally, things were aligning in his favor. He was sure that he would be transmitting energy in no time, even saying to a friend of his, "If it continues for a few weeks like this, the whole globe will be griddled soon." But as you might know, the deal went nowhere. Mr. Ryan still gave Tesla a few small lumps of money, but never the 100,000 he had hoped for. The first question arises: why did the deal not go through? Well, the first thing to know is that Thomas Ryan was in essence Morgan's puppet. Morgan had many puppets on Wall Street. He couldn't have gotten as big as he had without them. He most likely suggested to Ryan that he not invest his money in Tesla, for it was a waste. But if this is true, another question arises, and to quote Mark J. Seffer in his book Wizard: The Life and Times of Nikola Tesla, if Tesla's enterprise was perceived to have become potentially profitable, having Ryan put in another $100,000 to complete it would have been an easy thing to do. We can therefore conclude that Morgan deliberately scuttled the Tesla venture. Now, why would Morgan deliberately scuttle Tesla's project? The answer is simple. If Tesla had succeeded, Morgan and every other multi-billionaire on Wall Street would have had to declare bankruptcy. One day, Bernard Baruch, another stockbroker, approached Morgan by asking if he was a gambler. Morgan answered that he wasn't, and Bernard continued by saying that Morgan sure was gambling with Tesla. Look, this guy is going crazy. What he is doing is he wants to give free electrical power to everybody, and we can't put meters on that. We are just going to go broke supporting this guy. What he said clearly resonated with Morgan because he knew it was true. If you take a look at Morgan's possessions, it becomes even more apparent. Morgan owned over 30 different railroads. These railroads transported steel and copper and coal from mines that he also owned, to create wires with rubber from rubber yards he owned, and telephone poles for companies he owned. This power was created by companies he owned, and lit bulbs that were produced by him, and motors that were produced by him. To sum it all up, all of Morgan's wealth, and the wealth of all the rich at that time, and probably to this day, relied on the control of energy. And that is why Morgan, who had originally funded Tesla's plan, in the end did everything in his power to stop him. In 1906, when Tesla finally realized that his project was doomed, he had a nervous breakdown. And to add insult to injury, his friend Stanford White was murdered. Tesla pulled out of society. He became bitter. But slowly, he climbed back up and started inventing again, still trying to raise funds for his tower. But again, tragedy struck when another friend of his died in the sinking of the Titanic, John Jacob Astor. Astor owned the Waldorf Astoria, and Tesla was living there rent-free for the time. But once Astor died, George C. Bolt, the manager, insisted that Tesla must pay the rent that was due. The sum of money was far too great for Tesla, so he instead decided to hand over Wardenclyffe to him as compensation for the meantime. But on July 4th, 1917, the tower was blown up without Tesla's knowledge to get some money from the scrap pieces of wood. It was so well built that it had to be dynamited multiple times before it crumbled to the floor. And with that, Tesla's greatest invention had been blasted to bits and pieces. Some still don't believe that he would ever have been able to transmit energy wirelessly, but one thing is certain: the men at the top certainly feared that he could. And with that, we have finished this three-part series on Tesla's attempt to transmit power wirelessly across the globe, a project he might not have been the first to have tried to attempt. Oh no. Along this process of research, I have found many eerie similarities in Tesla's contraption and the Great Pyramid of Giza. From the aquifer underneath to the resonance of the chambers, it seems that the pyramids might not be just a tomb for the pharaohs. So, subscribe so you don't miss that episode coming very soon. As always, thanks for watching. Until the next mystery,